Good morning, everyone. This is Rupert and Paul's weekly video newsletter on Climate Transform to let you know what's been happening and what to look forward to. Paul, you just said on off air that you're swamped. It's been you're juggling lots of things at the moment, but you also had a good chat with Josh Kaufmann earlier in the week.
Yeah, Rupert, I did. Swamp for good reasons. Look, sorry, I shouldn't even say that. Everyone's busy. Everybody's busy. And frankly, I always get annoyed when people tell me how busy they are because everyone is busy. So I'm certainly not going to start saying that now. But we did have a wonderful conversation with Josh. Josh is the president and founder of a company called Nexus Development Capital. They are a early stage development capital funding company. They're not a fund. They do direct investments, and it goes to the heart of a structural problem that I see, which I mentioned in last week's commentary, was how the hell is this stuff going to get funded, right? So I describe it this way: if you want to make one of something, there's plenty of venture capital money out there that'll let you do it, right? If you want to make 100 of something, that's where problems start, right? Because the availability of project finance, unless it is as pure as it gets, unless it's bond-like, i.e. you've got off-take agreements, you've got your contracts sorted out, it's basically a watertight, all quasi-risk-free assessment project, you're not getting funding. And what Josh does is goes to companies that need funding, which is generally less than $10 million, so smaller scale stuff. I described it as mezzanine finance, bridging finance, stuff that, again, these are my words, not Josh's. Maybe some projects that have got a little bit of some hair on them that, that aren't as clean and aren't going to be able to get project finance from the JP Morgans, HSBCs of the world. I thought Josh, the conversation that Josh and I had was an intriguing one because it goes to the heart of these bigger picture issues of, we're going to need trillions of dollars worth of funding, right? And venture capital doesn't provide that, so we're going to need traditional banking system. We're going to need large pools of capital, whether that's the pension industries and insurance companies and the like, to move forward to fund a lot of these ventures. So Josh is doing this on a small scale. He's deliberately niche, going around that that $5 to $15 million range is what he's funding. So he's not doing the $300 million carbon capture projects, which we talk about that at length in the conversation as well. And we went through the sectors that he loves, the sectors that he wants to avoid. Good conversation. It was a good conversation, but there's certainly some bigger picture themes that you can extrapolate from that microcosm, which is Josh and Nexus Development Capital.
Yeah, they seem to be working in the sectors where it's, as you said, I think you just said, a little less loved, but as a result, still important parts of the transition. But you have to pay a heavy price for Josh's products. Was my takeaway. I think
it ain't cheap. Yeah, it's not. It's
15% or something like that. It's like, wow.
Yeah, well, it's not cheap. It's not cheap funding, and look, he's taking a lot of risks, right? Because he's not getting venture capital style equity returns for what he's doing, and nor is the other projects he's doing safe enough to warrant bond like returns. They're in the middle, and look, it's not cheap. You've got a cost of equity of around 15%, which is, in some cases higher than that. But as Josh alluded to, what it does allow him to do, and that's why I think the bridge financing element is an interesting way to describe it. It allows companies to get to that level where they can go to the HSBCs and JP Morgans and Standard Charters of the world and get that sort of pure project finance to really scale.
Yeah. It's a good chat. Nice to get into the weeds a bit. I'm glad it was you hosting it because with your finance background, you were able to sort of pick it apart. I was, I can understand a few numbers, but you certainly went further into the weeds than I would have been capable of. So that was a nice one. So that was sustainable finance, a nice sort of show that that's a key area, one of our big buckets that as you described them. And next week, looking forward, we've got we're covering shipping, which is perhaps an under observed part of the industry. Of course, we all know that products have got to get from A to B, but it's only when we see like the Evergrande, was it? What's the ship that got caught in the Suez?
Try to do a 3-point turn in the Suez Canal doesn't really work.
Yeah, that we only appreciate how much we rely on it as part of our seemingly smooth supply chain. So we've got Marine Digital, Ivan and Lena, two of the C-suite at Marine Digital, who are trying to tackle a slightly traditional industry and get them into the 21st century in terms of the simple ways they can make the things more efficient, whilst some of perhaps the pace rallies of this world are trying to revolutionise it. Hey, let's not get stuck in bunker fuel mentality. Let's try and at least make some changes whilst we're waiting for the big hitters to come in.
Well, Matt, and again, it goes back to a very fundamental point that this is not a climate revolution that many would love to see. That most of us would love to see. We'd love to wake up and flip a switch and make the world completely sustainable, right? But it ain't going to happen. And shipping is a good example. Aviation is another great example where you can talk about all the innovation that you like and all these pipe dreams. We are a decade away from getting a low carbon plane. Period. Full stop. End of story. Right. We use 0.1% of all fuel used in the aviation industry is sustainable, and it's just because it just isn't there, and it's just not cost effective. Shipping faces, shipping from an infrastructure standpoint has the ability to transition more quickly. You can retrofit a ship with a hydrogen fuel cell where you can't retrofit a plane, right? It just doesn't work. But these are big challenges that are going to take a long time to do, and I think that the transition, the using the word transition is important because it's an evolution, not a revolution. And I think we've got to be practical, and I think if there's one thing that we'll focus on for the next several years is don't let the perfect get in the way of the very good. And it's are we moving quickly enough? No, we're not. But we also don't have a choice. And that goes into bigger issues of defunding fossil fuels and all this sort of stuff, which is stuff that you practically can't do. Mate, before we go, can I just bring up one point? So obviously everyone knows we've been hinting about this a while, about this voluntary carbon market conference we're doing in September. For full disclosure, we've gone back and forth about whether we interview Well, we were initially going back whether we should interview Adam Newman about Flowcarbon, and then the latest thing is should we interview Flowcarbon themselves? Well, in typical fashion, unfortunately, my climate journey has got to Flowcarbon before we did. And again, I keep saying my jealousy of Jason Jacobs and his team has no boundaries, and yet again they've gazumped us. But I listened to the interview this morning no Adam Newman, but the executive team was there. And Rupert, I wanted to go in and I wanted to hate this thing. And my skepticism about blockchain is boundless. But I do see a place for blockchain in terms of the democratization of carbon credits. I do think that there is too much infrastructure being built to service the limited amounts of supply. I do think that the blockchain has I'm a believer that blockchain is a solution looking for a problem in many, many cases. This is an elegant solution for a lot of the issues around carbon credits. Doesn't solve supply. I don't think it solves the transparency issues like they claim it does. This management team was impressive, and they were an interesting group that said all the right things. I have a fairly robust bullshit meter with companies like this, and it didn't go off. On my little hour-long walk that I did, that's 5:30 this morning, it was a pleasant surprise. So I'm not sure if they're going to come on our event in September. We may or may not get them. But I think it's worth listening to. It's up on the climate it's up on Climate Banter on Telegram if you're people who want to jump on there and listen to that. But let's. I wanted to be really dire and critical of this, and I just couldn't. I couldn't be, which I think big picture is a good thing.
Well, I'll give that a read. I'll give that a listen later. Probably not at 5:30 a.m. walk though. Paul, good as ever. You mentioned carbon there. I'll also just give a quick note to the other event we got on next week, which is going from carbon certification to scientific verification. Good to have Alessandro back with us next week. Our carbon guru. He's chatting with Christopher Mbanefo, founder and CEO of Oxyzen, a tech platform for assessing, quantifying, and trading science-verified carbon sequestration capacity.
Having met Christopher, mate, I would recommend this to everyone. He's a very, very smart, very thoughtful guy. Has a very interesting backstory about not a failed company, but a company they tried to. So this is a pivot from a company that they were trying to build out, which was actually an airline. What they were trying to do was a carbon-free airline, which is buy an airline and then buy enough offsets to deal with everything like that. Couldn't get it off the ground, but Oxyzen was then created on the back of that. So it was great, mate. Have a fantastic week, and I will chat to everyone shortly.
Cheers, Paul.
All right, bye, everyone.